This is his actual bunker, and it really looks like kind of an Aztec pyramid or some Egyptian structure from ancient times.
Two discoveries, separated by thousands of miles, point to the same terrifying conclusion. A group of elite officers was not just fighting a war, they were hunting for a temple they believed held the secrets of the universe. They had maps, they had funding, and they found something. From the high peaks of Tibet to the jungles of Bolivia and finally to a basement in Poland.
In this massive megastructure, he's just one big nest of Nazis.
The trail of evidence is undeniable. But why did the world powers decide to cover it up? The answer might disturb you. The silence of the wolf's lair. Most people think the history books are closed, locked tight with everything we need to know about the conflicts of the 20th century, but here is the catch. Sometimes the Earth spits out a secret that forces us to rewrite the entire narrative. To understand the magnitude of this mystery, we have to start with the most recent piece of the puzzle, a discovery made just a few months ago in 2024 that has baffled forensic experts and reignited a firestorm of conspiracy theories. We are in the deep, moss-covered forests of Poland at a place ominously named the Wolf's Lair. This was not just a military base, it was a hidden city of concrete and steel, a fortress where the leadership of the Third Reich spent over 800 days hiding from the world. It was a place of secrets, paranoia, and darkness. For decades, tourists have walked over these grounds, snapping photos of the mossy bunkers, unaware of what was sleeping just a few inches beneath their boots. In April of 2024, a team of amateur archaeologists and researchers decided to dig beneath the floor of a destroyed villa. This wasn't just any house, it was the former residence of Hermann Göring, the second most powerful man in the regime, a man known for his obsession with art, ancient history, and excess. The team expected to find mundane artifacts, maybe some broken wine bottles, rusted pipes, or perhaps shards of porcelain plates used during lavish dinners. It's not that simple, though. As they brushed away the damp, dark soil, they hit bone. At first, they thought they had found a soldier, perhaps a sentry who had passed away during a raid, but as they uncovered more, the scene transformed from a historical dig into a crime scene that looked like something out of a horror movie. They found 5 skeletons. The grouping was bizarre. There were 3 adults, a teenager, and a tiny baby. They were all buried together right under the floorboards where Göring would have walked every single day. But the details are what will keep you up at night. None of these skeletons had hands. None of them had feet. Now pause and think about that. If this was a standard burial, the small bones of the hands and feet might have decomposed or been scattered by animals. But these skeletons were buried inside a building, protected from scavengers. The long bones of the arms and legs were intact. The skulls were there, but the extremities were gone. Yeah, about that. Forensic analysis suggests that the hands and feet might have been removed before burial. Why? Was it a punishment? In ancient times, removing hands was a way to mark a thief or a traitor. But why do it to a baby? This detail has led to some of the most disturbing theories imaginable. Some researchers speculate that this was not a burial, but a disposal of failed experiments. We know that the regime was obsessed with purity and biological perfection. There is a wild theory circulating in the underground forums that the Wolf's Lair wasn't just a command center, but a site for occult rituals involving necromancy or attempts to contact entities from other planes of existence. The removal of hands and feet is often associated with preventing the dead from rising or grabbing the living in various dark folklore traditions. Did Göring, a man who was deeply superstitious, demand a ritual sacrifice to protect his home? It sounds insane, but when you look at the company he kept, the line between insanity and reality blurs. The crazy part is that there were no clothes, no buttons, no zippers found with the bodies. They were stripped completely bare. This dehumanization suggests they were viewed as less than human, or perhaps they were viewed as vessels for something else. And get this. This discovery in Poland is just the tip of the iceberg. It connects to a much larger global web of weird archaeology conducted by this regime. Because while they were burying handless bodies in Poland, they were digging up horned skulls in Russia. The connection between these two sites isn't just coincidental. It hints at a systematic search for a specific biological trait, a marker of the ancient gods. The Wolf's Lair discovery has forced us to ask, what were they looking for in the human body? And did they find something in these victims that terrified them enough to remove their ability to touch or walk? The silence of the forest is deafening, but the bones are screaming a story we are only just beginning to translate. To understand why a regime would be so obsessed with bones, we have to travel east to the mountains of the Caucasus, where a briefcase was found that shouldn't exist. The briefcase and the demon skulls. Deep in the Adygea region of Russia, the mountains hold secrets that date back thousands of years. It is a place of dolmens, ancient stone structures that look like portals, and legends of giants. In 2015, a group of local explorers was navigating a complex cave system when they found something that looked completely out of place in the wild. It was a chest, a dusty old chest. But inside, they found a briefcase made of brown leather remarkably well preserved. The handle was sturdy, the clasps were rusted but intact. But it was the logo stamped on the front that stopped their hearts. It was the runic symbol of the Ahnenerbe, the Ancestral Heritage Society. What most people don't realize is that finding Ahnenerbe gear in this specific part of Russia is a smoking gun. We know they were there in 1941. We know they were looking for something. But until this briefcase was opened, we didn't know what they were carrying. Inside the case, there were maps. These weren't your standard military topographic maps used for moving tanks or artillery. These were detailed, colorful geological maps of the Adygea region, highlighting specific cave entrances and ancient stone formations. It was a treasure map. But instead of X marking the spot for gold, the marks seemed to point to energy centers or gateways. But here's the catch. Next to the briefcase, in the same cave system, the explorers found two skulls. And this is where the story goes off the rails. These skulls did not look human. They didn't even look like any known primate. They had no lower jaws. The facial structure was flat. The eye sockets were enormous, dark voids that stared back at the camera. And from the sides of the head, large, bony protrusions curved outward, looking exactly like horns. The internet dubbed them the Anunnaki skulls, or the goat demons. The immediate theory was explosive. The Nazis had found the remains of the Watchers, the fallen angels or aliens mentioned in ancient texts. The theory goes that the Ahnenerbe was in the Caucasus not to fight the Soviet Union, but to make contact with these entities inside the mountain. Basically, everyone's obsessed with the idea that these skulls are proof of ancient aliens. The Ahnenerbe believed that the Aryan race didn't evolve from monkeys, but descended from the stars or from a divine civilization like Atlantis. Finding a non-human skull would have been the holy grail for them. It would have proven that gods walk the earth. So here's the deal with the wild theories surrounding this. Some ufologists claim that these skulls belong to a race of beings that live inside the earth. This ties into the hollow earth theory, which we will get to in a minute. They believe the Ahnenerbe was trying to find an entrance to Agartha, the legendary kingdom at the earth's core, and these horned skulls were the guardians or the inhabitants of the outer tunnels. And that's putting it lightly. There are reports, unverified but persistent, that the ring found inside the briefcase belonged to a soldier named Maria. But this wasn't a woman. It was likely a reference to Maria Orsic, the famous medium of the Vril Society who claimed to telepathically communicate with aliens from the Aldebaran star system. Was this briefcase carrying her visions? Was the map a guide based on psychic coordinates? The crazy part is that when you hold these skulls or look at the high-resolution images, they feel almost too alien. They trigger a primal fear. The lack of a jaw makes them look like they are perpetually screaming. The horns suggest a devilish nature. For a regime obsessed with the occult, finding these would have been seen as a sign that they were close to the source of dark power. But why leave them there? If these were the most important discoveries in human history, why leave the briefcase and the skulls in a cave? The leading theory is that the unit carrying them was ambushed or trapped. The war turned against them and they died protecting the secret, leaving it for us to find 70 years later. This discovery in Russia provides the why for the atrocities. They weren't just eliminating for territory, they were eliminating to clear the way for a new history. They believed they were the heirs to these horned gods. And to prove it, they needed more than just old bones. They needed living proof. They needed to measure, categorize, and dissect the entire human race to find the spark of this ancient bloodline. This brings us to the organization itself. Who were these people? And how did a group of pseudoscientists convince a modern nation to spend millions of dollars chasing ghosts? The Order of the Ancestors. To understand the madness, you have to look at the man behind the curtain. Heinrich Himmler. He wasn't just a military leader, he was a failed chicken farmer who became obsessed with mysticism, astrology, and the occult. In 1935, he founded the Ahnenerbe with a very specific mission: to rewrite the past, to control the future. The name Ahnenerbe literally means ancestral heritage. On paper, they were an archaeological institute. In reality, they were a cult with an unlimited budget. They didn't care about science, they cared about proving a myth. What most people don't realize is the scale of their operation. They didn't just dig in dirt, they had departments for everything: meteorology, geophysics, botany, and even musicology to find the ancient magical frequencies of Aryan music. They were looking for the vril energy, a mythical power source that could allow them to fly, heal wounds, or destroy enemies with a thought. But here is the catch. Their methods were brutal. They didn't just want old pottery, they wanted bodies. This leads us to one of the darkest chapters of their research, which connects directly to the wolf's lair skeletons. The Ahnenerbe believed that by studying the skulls of different races, they could scientifically prove that they were a separate species. There is a documented event that is horrifyingly real. It is called the Jewish Skeleton Collection. An Ahnenerbe anatomist named August Hirt wrote to Himmler complaining that they had plenty of skulls of subhumans, but not enough from a specific group to create a scientific display. So they went to the camps. They selected 86 people, men and women, specifically for this purpose. They measured them while they were alive, took photos, and then, in a calculated, cold-blooded move, they ended their lives at a gas chamber in Natzweiler-Strudorf. They didn't just commit a crime, they created a museum of horrors. The bodies were sent to the University of Strasbourg, where they were preserved in vats of alcohol. They were waiting for the flesh to be stripped so the skeletons could be displayed as trophies of a conquered people. Now connect this back to the wolf's lair. If they were willing to do that to 86 innocent people just to get their skeletons, is it so hard to believe they would experiment on a family in Poland? The missing hands and feet at the wolf's lair might have been taken as samples for another one of Hirt's twisted projects. Maybe they were looking for specific bone structures in the extremities that indicated genetic purity or atavism, a throwback to an ancestor. The crazy part is that the Allies found these 86 bodies in 1944. They were still in the vats. It was undeniable proof that the Ahnenerbe was not a scientific group, but a criminal organization masquerading as one. But while Hirt was collecting human bones, other branches of the Ahnenerbe were looking for something much bigger. They were looking for the entrance to the inner world. Himmler believed in the world ice theory, a bizarre idea that the moon was made of ice and that ancient ice moons had crashed into Earth, creating floods and giving godlike powers to the survivors. He needed to find where these survivors went, and all the ancient texts pointed to one place: the Himalayas. This is where the story turns into an adventure movie, but with real villains. They launched the Tibet expedition. They weren't going there to climb mountains. They were going there to find the King of Fear and the hidden tunnels of Shambhala.